Weak human? Then why did he walk into the arena? The crowd was loud, alien voices shouting, laughing, screaming. Bright lights flashed above the massive galactic combat arena. Billions of eyes across the galaxy watched the live broadcast. Everyone came to see blood. Everyone came to see the strongest champions fight. But this time, something was different. In the center of the arena, a huge steel gate opened. A quiet silence fell over the crowd. Heavy smoke floated out of the tunnel. Everyone expected a tall, dangerous warrior, maybe a lizard beast from Krelon, or a metal soldier from the AI colonies. But no. Out stepped a thin human man. He walked slowly, calmly, without fear. No armor, no weapon, just simple black clothing and soft boots. His face showed no emotion. His hands were behind his back. He looked around the arena like he was just going for a walk. The aliens laughed. "A human," shouted a three-eyed creature from the stands. "This is a joke," screamed another. "Where is the real fighter?" Even the announcer sounded confused. His deep alien voice echoed through the arena. "Next challenger, from planet Earth," the human called. "Rylan." Rylan didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just kept walking until he stood in the center of the fighting circle. The ground shook. Loud metal doors opened across from him. From the darkness, a huge monster stepped out. The Zarkan champion. 9 feet tall, covered in bone armor. Skin like lava rock. Teeth longer than fingers. The crowd roared. The Zarkan lifted his axe and pointed at Rylan. "You are no warrior. You are food," he growled. Rylan said nothing. The referee, a floating droid, flew between them. "Begin," it said, and quickly flew away. The Zarkan rushed forward with speed and fury. The ground cracked under his feet. Rylan didn't move. The alien swung his giant axe at Rylan's head and missed. The crowd gasped. Rylan had moved, just one step to the side. Calm, smooth, perfect timing. The Zarkan growled. He attacked again, this time with a spinning move. Dust flew everywhere. Rylan ducked, fast and low. The axe missed again. He didn't fight back. He just avoided every strike. Whispers started in the crowd. "Is this a trick?" No human moves like that. Back in the high sky booth, the alien tournament judges watched closely. One tapped his claw on the table. "Something's wrong," he said. "That human is reading the Zarkan." Back in the arena, the Zarkan was now angry, embarrassed. He had never missed this many times. "You insult me," he shouted. He threw his axe. A deadly move. Rylan leaned back just an inch. The axe passed right by his face. Everyone gasped again. Still, Rylan said nothing. The crowd was no longer laughing. Then something strange happened. Rylan took one step forward. The Zarkan prepared to block, but there was no attack. Rylan just stood close, looking up into the beast's face. "I know your pattern," he said quietly. The Zarkan snarled and swung a giant punch. This time, Rylan struck back. His hand moved so fast, the cameras couldn't follow. He hit a pressure point on the Zarkan's wrist. Cracky! The Zarkan screamed. His hand dropped uselessly. He stepped back, holding his arm. The crowd went silent. The announcer's voice trembled. "First blood, from the human." People across the galaxy stared at their screens. Who was this man? Why didn't he look scared? Why didn't he fall like the others? In the shadows of the arena, a hooded alien turned to his partner and whispered, "Earth said they had no champions." "They lied," the other said. Back in the ring, Rylan stood still. The Zarkan was breathing heavy now. His steps were slower. His face showed fear. Rylan tilted his head. "This fight is over," he said. The Zarkan growled, but didn't move. Rylan didn't attack. He just stood, calm and quiet. And that silence was louder than any roar. He should have been dead in seconds, but then Rylan moved. The arena lights flickered. The ground was cracked from battle. Smoke curled in the air, but in the center of it all stood a quiet man, Rylan, the human from Earth. And across from him, the Zarkan champion, injured, breathing heavy, with one arm useless. The crowd still didn't understand what they had just seen. This should not have happened. The Zarkans were known across the galaxy as war beasts, trained from birth, their muscles injected with growth serum, their minds focused only on destruction. Humans, they were seen as weak, small, emotional, not made for combat. So how did one human, just one, walk into the arena and break the Zarkan's arm without even using a weapon? The Zarkan didn't care about questions. He was too angry. His pride was burning. With a roar, he rushed forward again, this time with only his left arm, his claws glowing with plasma heat. Rylan didn't blink. His eyes stayed calm, almost bored. And then he moved. Not fast, not slow. Perfect. He ducked the Zarkan's strike, grabbed the creature's arm, and with one smooth twist, threw the 9-foot monster into the air. The arena shook when the Zarkan hit the ground. Silence. Then screams. From the crowd, from the judges, from the control room. He lifted him with one hand. Someone shouted, "Did you see that?" Yelled another. The announcer's voice cracked. The human has thrown the Zarkan champion. On the battlefield, the Zarkan groaned in pain. His armor was cracked. His leg was broken. He tried to get up, but couldn't. Rylan slowly walked forward, his boots making soft sounds on the dusty floor. He stood over the champion. Still no emotion on his face. "Enough," he said simply. But the Zarkan wasn't ready to give up. His pride wouldn't let him. With his last strength, he grabbed a broken piece of his armor and tried to stab Rylan in the leg. Wrong move. Rylan's hand shot out like lightning. He caught the sharp bone in midair, without a scratch. Then, gently, he let it drop to the floor. He leaned down and whispered something only the Zarkan could hear. No one else knew what he said. But the Zarkan's eyes went wide. His face changed. Something inside him broke. Not bones, but spirit. He didn't try to fight anymore. He just laid back and groaned. "I surrender." Gasps echoed across the galaxy. Zarkans never surrendered. And certainly not to humans. In the control room high above the arena, the Galactic Council sat frozen. One of them, a tall, silver-skinned alien named Archenvel, spoke first. "This is not just a human," he said slowly. "This is something else." Another member, the bird-like general with red feathers, nodded. "There is no record of any human warrior like him. No Earth training program. No data. He is a ghost." Archenvel narrowed his eyes. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe Earth sent us their ghost weapon." Back in the arena, the crowd was split. Some aliens cheered. Others screamed in protest. Some looked scared. Some looked hopeful. And Rylan, he just stood still. A judge drone flew down and hovered above him. Combat complete. Winner, Rylan of Earth. Cheers exploded. So did confusion. Aliens shouted in different languages. Some booed. Some clapped. Some threw things onto the field. Rylan ignored it all. He walked out of the ring as quietly as he had entered. Behind the scenes, in a dark hallway, a small creature with a long coat watched Rylan walk by. He pulled out a small device and sent a message. "Subject Alpha RY1 is real. He's active. Repeat. Human ghost is in the arena. Begin Protocol Shadow Storm." Across the galaxy, warning lights turned on in hidden places. Secret files opened. Old names were whispered again. And deep in a black space station orbiting a dying star, a machine opened its eyes. Later that night, Rylan sat alone in a quiet room. No windows, no noise, just him, a chair, and a screen. He looked at his hands, hands that had trained for years, hands that had broken monsters today. But his face showed no pride. Only one word escaped his lips. Why now? Just then, the screen in front of him lit up. A video message played, a woman's voice. Kind, familiar. If you're seeing this, Rylan, it means you've stepped into the ring. Good. That means they're watching now. Everything we planned has started. Don't stop. Don't show them mercy. Show them what humanity really is. Rylan stared at the screen. A memory flickered in his eyes. Pain, fire, earth burning, friends dying, his family gone. He stood up. No more hiding. No more pretending to be weak. He was not here to win. He was here to send a message. The Zarkan fell, and everyone stood in silence. No one spoke. Not the crowd. Not the announcer. Not the judges. Not even the wind. For the first time in galactic combat history, silence ruled the arena. The Zarkan, once undefeated, once feared by planets across 4 galaxies, now lay broken on the ground, coughing, his eyes wide with disbelief. Blood ran from his cracked lips. His armor, bone and fire-forged steel, was shattered like cheap glass. The warrior who once crushed machines and monsters had fallen, not from a bomb, not from a blade, but from one human man's hands. And that human still hadn't broken a sweat. Rylan stood tall, calm, still breathing softly, like the battle had never touched him. His eyes didn't show victory. No pride, no smile, only warning. High above, in the elite observation deck, galactic leaders and warlords sat frozen. King Mertox of the Zarkan Empire growled under his breath. This cannot be. That creature cheated. Humans are weak. Beside him, Lady Untra of the Starve Relics leaned forward, her eyes glowing with curiosity. No, that's no ordinary human. That one was trained, forged, hidden from our eyes. Across the deck, General Soren of the Xarn fleet whispered, Earth has been lying to us. In the lower levels of the arena, workers stopped moving. Some dropped their tools. One janitor, an alien boy with 4 arms, looked at the screen and whispered to himself. He made the Zarkan bleed. His voice trembled. Across space stations, ships, and desert colonies, people who had once laughed at humans now leaned closer to their screens. They didn't know what they were watching, but they knew one thing. The galaxy had just changed. Back in the arena, the referee drone hovered nervously. It repeated the official result for the 4th time. Winner, Rylan of Earth. Combat over. Final. But no one clapped. No one booed. They were still frozen. Because Rylan hadn't left. He was just standing there, staring at the crowd, as if he saw through them, as if he knew them, as if he wasn't fighting for applause, but for something deeper. The announcer finally found his voice, though it cracked with tension. Ladies and gentlemen, we are confirming this is not a simulation. The fight was real. The Zarkan champion is defeated. A pause. Then someone in the crowd stood. A blue-skinned child. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She just whispered 2 words. Thank you. Others turned to look. And then, slowly, it began. One alien clapped, then another, then more. Cheers started like small sparks, then became a wildfire. Ar-Wylan. 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 His name rose into the air like thunder. The chant wasn't just for a fighter. It was for a symbol. A reminder that strength didn't always wear claws or come from power serums. Sometimes it wore soft boots, quiet eyes, and moved with calm hands. But not everyone was cheering. In the shadows beneath the arena, dark machines were moving. Black armored guards gathered. Their orders were simple: detain the human, by any means. The High Council didn't like what just happened. A human had shown power. Too much power. It could change everything: politics, control, peace treaties. The council didn't want a hero. They wanted silence. Meanwhile, in a back corridor of the arena, a tall alien in a cloak tapped into a private comm line. "Send the files," he whispered. "The Earth Ghost is alive, and he's active." From the other side, a voice answered, low and human. We knew he'd break the silence eventually. The cloaked figure nodded. He didn't just break it. He shattered it. Back inside the arena, medical drones tried to carry the Zarkan champion away. But before they could lift him, the monster held up a hand. "Wait," he growled weakly. Everyone froze. The Zarkan turned his head toward Rylan. Slowly, painfully, he raised his hand and gave a warrior's salute. Rylan didn't move for a moment. Then, he returned the salute. Just one small nod. Two warriors, one beaten, one standing, but both now understanding something greater than pride. Later, in a private room far from the crowd, Rylan stood in front of a mirror. He stared at himself. Not his face, not his muscles. His eyes. They looked the same as always, quiet, deep, unreadable. But inside, something had changed. He could feel it. The galaxy now knew he existed. There would be no turning back. His silence had ended. And now, the storm would come. On a moon across the galaxy, a giant screen replayed the fight. A group of soldiers, human soldiers, watched silently. One of them, a woman with silver eyes, turned to her commander. "He's alive. We trained him for this moment. And now, the galaxy knows we're not weak." The commander nodded. "Let them come. This time, we're ready." Meanwhile, back in the arena, the next match was being announced. But no one was listening. Every alien in the crowd still had one name in their minds: Rylan, the human who crushed a champion, the man they had called weak, the man who stood tall while others fell. And in the depths of space, in secret rooms and dark corners, the words began to spread. Earth has awakened. He wasn't on any list, because Earth erased his records. Far from the roaring arena, across the cold stars and shadowed planets, powerful beings were panicking. Not because the Zarkan champion lost, not because the crowd chanted a human name, but because they couldn't find a single file, not one, about the man called Rylan. No data, no training history, no bloodline, no birth record, nothing. It was like he didn't exist. And that was impossible. In the Galactic Council's war room, massive screens flickered as computers searched every known system, database, and archive. Again and again. Zero results. The commander of the AI Intelligence Corps, a machine named Unit Prime 6, reported in a cold robotic voice. "Target Rylan of Earth does not appear in combat databases, school systems, genetic banks, or planetary records. He is a void." The room fell silent. Then a reptilian general slammed the table with his claw. "This is Earth's weapon. They created him in secret. They'd been hiding him all this time." An older, soft-voiced alien, the speaker of peace, shook his head. If Earth had this kind of warrior, why now? Why reveal him in a public arena? Across the table, the Xarn diplomat whispered with dread. "Because now we're watching. And they wanted us to see." Back on Earth, deep below the ruins of old Geneva, there was a chamber that didn't officially exist. No signs, no doors, no light, except the soft glow of one terminal, powered by an ancient core that even the galaxy forgot. And there someone opened a locked file. Code name: Project Umbra. Status: activated. Inside the file, one name: Rylan. the man Earth had erased. Flashback. 17 years earlier. The sky was burning. Earth was under attack, not by soldiers, but by sickness, chaos, and betrayal. Corporations had sold human data to alien nations. Governments had bowed to fear. The world's strongest fighters had become tools, toys, trophies in interplanetary games. But in the ruins of a forgotten mountain village, a secret program began. Led by humans who didn't follow flags or orders, only truth. They didn't want thousands of soldiers. They wanted one. One man who could watch the stars, study every alien move, understand every style, adapt to any power, and become something no one expected. Quiet, invisible, deadly. Rylan was chosen, not for strength, not for size, but for his eyes. The way he watched people, patterns, emotion, pressure, balance. He didn't need a gun. He was a weapon. His trainers were the best Earth had left. A blind warrior who fought with sound. A former alien gladiator who defected. A physicist who used math to teach timing. And an old woman who could read minds. They broke him down, then rebuilt him. No records. No name. No fingerprint in the system. Only shadows. He trained for 15 years without stepping outside. Then, one day, they told him, "The galaxy doesn't know you exist. It's time to show them." Present day, Galactic Arena Base. Rylan sat in his dark quarters. The cheers from earlier had faded. The lights were low. He stared at a small coin in his hand. One side had Earth's symbol. The other was blank. A door hissed open. An alien medic entered, shaking slightly. He wasn't sure if he should speak, but then he found courage. "Sir, the Council requests your presence for discussion." Rylan didn't look up. He placed the coin into a small pouch, stood up, and walked past the medic. In the council chamber, dozens of leaders sat in a high circle. Rylan stood alone in the center. No guards, no chains. One councilwoman spoke first. "Rylan of Earth, we demand answers. Who trained you? Who sent you here? Why are there no records of your existence?" Rylan looked up. "Because Earth made me disappear." Gasps filled the room. He continued. "They knew the galaxy only respects violence and control, so they trained me not to be seen. Until the time was right." A spiked alien growled. "You're a threat to peace." Rylan tilted his head. "Was it peaceful when you made humans fight your wars? When you took our people as slaves for sport?" The room fell silent again. He stepped forward. "I am not here to destroy the galaxy. I'm here to remind it that humans are still watching, still learning, still standing." The speaker of peace leaned forward. "Then why the arena? Why not diplomacy?" Rylan replied softly. "Because you don't listen to words. You listen to power." Meanwhile, in the secret labs of the Zarkan Empire, scientists examined the footage from the fight. One paused the screen, zoomed in, and there it was. In Rylan's left eye, something flickered. Not just a pupil, a device. Something ancient. Not tech, but something older. The lead scientist dropped his drink. "This is not Earth tech." Another whispered, "That's not from this galaxy." The room went cold. Back in the arena, crowds were now calling Rylan the ghost. Children asked for pictures. Aliens who once mocked humans now watched him with respect and fear. And deep underground, someone else was watching too. A being locked away for centuries. A prisoner who once fought the gods of war. He smiled for the first time in 500 years. "He's awake," he whispered. "Let the human rise, so I can finally test him." Even the machines couldn't predict his next move. On the far side of the arena station, behind layers of steel and firewalls, inside a black box labeled Prediction Core X9, the galaxy's smartest AI ran combat simulations every second. It could read body language, heart rate, micro muscle tension. It could predict a fighter's move before they moved. It had predicted the Zarkan's victory. It had predicted the human's death. It had never been wrong. Until now. ERR. Combat outcome mismatch. Subject: Rylan of Earth. Recalculating. 39 million failed predictions. Conclusion: subject behavior equals UNPOREDICTABLE. The machine tried again. Frame by frame. Muscle by muscle. Still, it couldn't answer the question every leader was asking. How did one human defeat the champion? Without chaos, without emotion, without fear. So it opened a forbidden protocol. Human instinct modeling. Code Gray. Only used once before, during the ancient Earth Rebellion. Meanwhile, Rylan stood alone in the underground training hall of the arena, stretching slowly. He wasn't resting. He was preparing. Because they were sending the Vrelic champion next. Not a beast, not a brute, but a machine-enhanced fighter, half alien, half data. The Vrelics didn't believe in muscle. They believed in perfection. Their champion, Lorix, was made of sharp angles, glowing veins, and armor that shifted with his thoughts. He didn't bleed. He didn't breathe. And he never lost. In the command center, Vrelic officers connected Lorix's neural net to the AI core. The room filled with holograms. Rylan's movements from the last fight. His dodges, his strikes, his stillness. A Vrelic engineer frowned. His reactions, they don't follow logic. No rhythm, no pattern. Another snapped back. That's because he's human, full of randomness. The commander growled. No, he's hiding something. Lorix will find it. The AI calculated the match's expected length, 27 seconds. Match day. Arena lights return. The crowd was louder than ever. Now billions weren't just watching. They were betting, screaming, praying. Would the ghost fall? Or rise again? Rylan entered first. Quiet. No music. No armor. Just breath and blood. Then came Lorix. Hovering above the ground. No footsteps. His body shimmered like liquid metal. His voice was not a voice. It was data. Analyzing opponent. He tilted his head at Rylan. No fear detected. Curious. Rylan only replied with silence. The bell rang. Round 1. Lorix moved first. Fast. Too fast. His hands were blades. His elbows struck like lasers. His feet left no sound. The crowd gasped. Rylan ducked, dodged, shifted. Every move perfect, but not pre-planned. He wasn't using strength. He was feeling the fight. Lorix spun midair, aiming a blade kick at Rylan's neck. Rylan bent backward, body arched like a wave. The blade passed within millimeters. Gasps again. In the AI command room, warnings flared. TUREDICTIONFA. URE. Frame 392. EMOTKIONAL or ESPONS 0. Instinct modal. Non-human. One technician whispered, "We can't read him. We don't know what he's thinking." The Vrelic general slammed the console. "He's thinking too fast." Round 2. Lorix adapted. He switched to adaptive speed mode, his sensors now 10x sharper. He launched 43 attacks in 3 seconds. But Rylan wasn't overwhelmed. He moved like water. Each dodge flowed into the next. Then, for the first time, he smiled. Lorix paused, confused. Rylan struck. One strike, a palm to the chest. A shockwave of air exploded across the arena. Lorix flew backward 20 feet and smashed into the wall. Silence. Then sparks. Lorix twitched. His systems glitched. In the VIP box, the Galactic Council watched in horror. Councilwoman Zetra stared at the screen. He hit a nerve point. Robots don't have nerve points. Archinvel. The oldest among them spoke softly. He didn't attack hardware. He attacked rhythm, the soul of movement. Another gasped. Is that even possible? Back in the arena, Lorik stood again, but slower now. His voice glitched. Error. Combat flow disrupted. Ryland's eyes narrowed. You fight with memory, but I fight with now. He rushed forward. No wasted motion. No hesitation. He ducked a strike, spun behind Lorik's, and kicked the back of his knee. The machine fell. Ryland jumped, one elbow down. Crash. The arena shook. Lorik's lay still, body broken, chest deaded. A long pause. Then, winner, Ryland of Earth. The crowd erupted. Even species who hated humans stood and clapped. Not for a nation, not for power, but for something older. Something true. Instinct. Heart. Raw life. Later that night, in the shadows of the arena, an old alien with metal eyes spoke into a device. This is worse than we thought. He doesn't just fight. He learns, and he's not done. A voice replied. Then we'll send the hybrid. Meanwhile, inside the AI core, the prediction machine finally gave up. Its final note. Bully Arning. Subject Ryland is not fully human. Confirm origin. On Earth, in a quiet bunker beneath the Pacific, a screen lit up. A woman watched the replay. She whispered, "He's starting to unlock it." A man behind her asked, "Should we stop him?" She shook her head. "No, the galaxy started this war. Let it see what we've hidden." He wasn't fighting to win. He was sending a message. The arena had changed. It was no longer a place of sport, no longer a show for the rich or blood for the powerful. It was now a mirror reflecting something the galaxy had tried to ignore for too long. Humanity was not broken. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was rising. And at the center of it all was Ryland, the human ghost, the one who had no file, no family, no fear, just purpose. But what terrified the council more than his strength was his silence. After the fight with Lorix, the Vrelic champion, no one spoke to Ryland. No reporters, no interviews, no celebration, because he didn't stay. He walked past security, past staff, and disappeared into a dark corridor that no one was supposed to use. Down, deeper, into the underbelly of the station, where old walls whispered secrets and cameras refused to work. He wasn't trying to hide. He was following a signal. A very old signal. A pattern in the arena floor only he could see. A sound in the vents only he could hear. A voice buried inside a memory. When they feared you, don't scream. Don't shout. Just walk. Let them follow your silence. That voice belonged to her, his last trainer. She had vanished years ago, assumed dead, but now her signal had returned. Meanwhile, above, the Galactic Council argued behind closed doors. Panic, blame, fear. One alien shouted, "If Ryland continues, he'll inspire rebellion. He'll break the system." Another warned, "The colonies are already chanting his name. They're painting his face on walls." But Archinvel, the oldest and most powerful voice in the chamber, raised a hand. And the room fell still. "You are all fools," he said. "He was never here to win. He is not a competitor. He is a message. And we are the ones he's speaking to." The council stared. Archinvel continued. "Earth was quiet for too long. Now I see why. They've turned pain into power, silence into strategy. They sent us not a soldier, but a warning." In the shadows of the arena, Ryland stopped in front of an old sealed vault. No guards, just dust, silence, and a strange humming vibration. He placed his hand on the lock. It opened. Inside was not a weapon, but a chair. Simple, round, made of earthwood and alien metal. He sat, The room lit up with light. Blue, soft, warm. A figure appeared. Not real. Not flesh. But a hologram of the woman who trained him. "Hello, Rylan," she said softly. "If you're seeing this, you've reached the signal. That means the council knows. And the time has come." She looked older than he remembered. Worn, but still strong. "You were never meant to be a champion. You were meant to be a spark. They think strength comes from steel. But you were trained in silence, in breath, in presence. Now you must show them." Her image flickered. "The war is already here." The message ended. Ryland stood. He wasn't done fighting. Not yet. The council, desperate to stop the rising storm, activated an ancient protocol. Project Chimera, a weapon created from the DNA of the strongest races, built in labs. Banned after the first test ended in death and madness. But now, they were ready to risk everything. Release the hybrid. Back on the arena screens, the next match was suddenly declared. For the final round. Rylan of Earth versus the Galactic Hybrid. Designation: Omega-1. The crowd went quiet. People across the galaxy stopped what they were doing. Some sat. Some knelt. Some cried. Because everyone had heard the rumors. Omega-1 wasn't a fighter. It was a weapon. And it had never been defeated. Inside the hybrid's chamber, Omega-1 opened its eyes. It was not man. Not alien. Not machine. But something else. Something born in a lab, raised in darkness, trained to hate. Its mind was not its own. But its hunger. That was real. Target: Rylan. Objective: terminate. Emotion: none. The doors opened, and Omega-1 walked toward the light. Meanwhile, in Rylan's quiet chamber, he picked up a small stone, a gift from Earth's last monk. He held it tight, remembering the final words of his training. Don't fight to destroy. Fight to awaken. He placed the stone into his belt, stood up, and walked out of the room. He knew this wouldn't be a fight. It would be the test, not just of muscle or mind, but of meaning. The arena changed. The lights dimmed. The ground cracked open. The ring was now a black pit, surrounded by shields and energy walls. 2 doors opened. On one side, Rylan, calm, ready, focused. On the other, Omega-1, tall, muscular, unnatural. Its skin shifted like oil, its eyes empty. They stared at each other. And then, Omega-1 spoke. "I have no past, no soul, only commands. Why do you stand before me?" Rylan's answer was simple. "To show you that you're more than what they made you." The hybrid blinked. "I don't understand." Rylan stepped forward. "You will." The crowd held its breath. The match began. He didn't just defeat the champion. He changed the galaxy forever. The arena had never been this quiet. Not during the fall of Zarkon. Not during the glitch of the Vrelic. Not even when Rylan first stepped onto the sand. Now, it wasn't just a fight. It wasn't even about winning. It was about truth. About freedom. About what it means to be human. And across the galaxy, on ships, colonies, dusty moons, and golden cities, everyone was watching. Some with hope. Some with fear. Some with regret. 2 figures stood at the center of the blackened ring. On one side, Rylan, the human ghost, trained in silence, created without records, shaped by pain and discipline. On the other, Omega-1, the perfect hybrid, born in a lab from the DNA of a dozen races, enhanced with tech, designed to obey. They were both weapons, but only one still remembered why he fought. The bell rang. Omega-1 moved first, faster than sound, heavier than steel. A massive fist aimed at Rylan's head. Rylan shifted sideways, his feet barely touching the ground. Omega struck again. A blur of power, rage, force. Rylan blocked one strike, dodged another, parried the third with a twist of his wrist. The force of the clash cracked the ground beneath them. Crowds screamed. Shields shook. Even the station itself groaned under the pressure. Back in the control room, the council stared in horror. Omega One was supposed to be unstoppable, a final solution. Now, it was being pushed back. Rylan had no armor, no claws, no enhancements, but he had something else. Rhythm, focus, instinct, and something the council had long forgotten. A soul. Omega One paused, blinking rapidly. "Why are you not afraid of me?" Rylan didn't answer with words. Instead, he struck. A single blow, fast and sharp, right to the center of Omega's chest. It wasn't brute force. It was surgical. Omega stumbled back, confused. Not hurt, but shaken. Flashback in Omega's mind. He remembered tubes, labs, commands. He remembered screaming. He remembered being told, "You are not a person. You are a tool." But now, here stood a human who looked at him not with hatred, but with understanding. And that broke something inside Omega. The hybrid roared and charged again, releasing energy from its hands. The arena glowed red. Wind swirled. Dust rose like a storm. Rylan stood still, waiting. The moment Omega leaped, Rylan disappeared, then reappeared behind him. With 2 fingers, he tapped the back of Omega's neck. A nerve point. The hybrid collapsed to one knee. Not unconscious, not broken, but overwhelmed. "You don't have to fight," Rylan said softly. "You were made to be a monster, but you can choose to be something more." The crowd leaned forward. What was happening? Was the human trying to talk to the hybrid? Omega's voice trembled for the first time. "They told me I have no name, no past, no future." Rylan stepped closer. "Then make one. Write it yourself." Omega looked up, his glowing eyes dimming. He dropped his arms. "I surrender." The entire arena went silent again. The announcer choked. "Though the hybrid has surrendered." Billions of screens across the stars lit up with the same message. Winner, Rylan of Earth. But no one cheered. They just sat there. Even the council. Because deep down, everyone realized. This wasn't a fight. This was a revolution. Rylan helped Omega to his feet. The hybrid's skin shimmered. His voice was quieter now. "What are you really?" Rylan smiled. "Just barely. Human. That's all." In the council chamber, Archanvel stood. No one tried to stop him. He pressed a button, and the universal broadcast began. "People of the galaxy, you watched the arena. You saw a human defeat monsters. But more than that, you saw him offer peace when he could have chosen pride. You saw him forgive when he could have destroyed. That is what Earth is." He turned to the others. "We underestimated them. Now we must decide. Continue the cycle of fear or change." The council was silent. Then, one by one, they stood. A new vote was cast. The arena games would be ended. The slave colonies would be freed. The warrior contracts would be broken. And Earth would take its seat among the ruling worlds. Later that day, Rylan stood on a quiet balcony, far above the city ship. Omega stood beside him, no longer a champion, but a being learning how to live. Below them, crowds chanted. Not in fear, not in rage, but in respect.
Again. R-O-N. R-O-L-N.
Omega looked at the sky. "You didn't fight for victory." Rylan shook his head. "I fought for the right to be seen." In a hidden chamber on Earth, the woman who trained Rylan watched the transmission. She wiped a tear from her eye. He did it. He made them listen. Final broadcast to the galaxy. Rylan's face appeared on every screen. He looked straight into the camera. His voice was steady. You watched a human stand in front of your best warriors, and you thought it was about strength. But it wasn't. It was about choice. The choice to rise. The choice to remember who we are. Earth was silent for a long time. We were rebuilding. We were healing. Now, we are awake. We're not here to take power. We're here to remind you. Never forget the humans. And across every world, in every language, one message echoed. The ghost of Earth didn't come to win the games. He came to change the galaxy.